Hello, fellow YouTubers. How you doing? I'm doing well. I actually wanted to kind of do. This is really just kind of gushing about something. I blame Johnny Millennium because during his stream, like last week, or I think it was last. It's been a long week, but during his stream last week, well, before he had started it up and everything, he had some music playing, and one of the songs that he had playing was this remix from the Saturn collection or something that had music from Phantasy Star 1, 2, and 3, and sort of like the seal being weakened enough for profound darkness to come through every 1,000 years. Every 1,000 days, I seem to have a huge desire to replay or re-listen to. I mean, I have been listening to the first 4 Phantasy Star game soundtracks non-stop since. Those are for me. I know I don't really talk much about them on any of the channels, any of the videos, but I really enjoy those games, and it's kind of, I guess, so hear me out if I don't knock everything over. Hear me out. For this video, I would like to kind of explore the possibility, or not really the possibilities, but the what if of a Phantasy Star V. I kind of doubt that'll ever happen, because you had online and universe and stuff like that. I never got into those. I think from what I've read, Phantasy Star Online could be seen as connected to Phantasy Star 3, but I don't know if it's definitively said or not. I tried to get into Nova and Phantasy Star Zero, but they never really got my attention, so I'm just going to focus this on 1 through 4, and because I want to talk about a 5. Well, because from what I gather, the online and universe are, they may be seen in the same universe, but they're kind of just in their own little areas and stuff, so they don't really have too much of a connection. But maybe I'm wrong. I think it's Phantasy Star Online 2 has its own version of Ooze, which is the final boss theme from Phantasy Star 4 and stuff, so maybe there's that kind of connection. But no, I want to talk about like a Phantasy Star 5. And to start with that, I don't have the issue, but there is an issue, I believe from 2010, of Nintendo Power that has an interview with Ryoko Kodama, and she was a big part in the creation process for 1, 2, and 4. I know she did the artwork and stuff. I know she wasn't maybe the lead creator, but I know she had at least some hand in it. And there's an interview with her where she talks about shortly after they had finished 4, they had thoughts and ideas for 5. And to get into that, we kind of have to bring up a bit of a point of contention, and that is that there are differences between the Japanese version and the English version, and if you try to say that one is more than the other, you will get a lot of heat from the fans that still hold the series near and dear to their heart, particularly like the old ones. I'm not saying one over the other or anything, but I'd like to point out that there are some very vastly kind of world-rendingly, universally shifting differences in some of these things. One in particular is Phantasy Star 3. Now, people point to that one as, no, absolutely not. Some people say that Phantasy Star 4 retcons 3. There's no canon ending for 3, because I think there's 4 different endings for 3 that can kind of happen. One in particular does kind of connect nicely to Phantasy Star 2, but a lot of people won't hear it because they don't like time loops. I'll just leave it at that. But there's that. The big thing with Phantasy Star 3 is that in the Japanese version, it is explicitly said that it takes place 2,000 years after Phantasy Star 2. And yeah, Phantasy Star, they for whatever reason, when they translated 3, they did not do that. They just said it takes place 1,000 years after. So in the English version, Phantasy Star 3 takes place concurrently, maybe a little bit after Phantasy Star 4. Not like 1,000 years after, but maybe like a couple years or so after. And that kind of buggers things up. I mean, plus you got the generational thing, so that kind of... But yeah, so you have that. That's a pretty big one. Pretty big one. And then in Phantasy Star 4, there's some things that are... I don't think they quite explain in detail in the English version that they do in the Japanese version. Because in the English version, from what I remember, they... You know, you have the Great Light and the Profound Darkness, and so there's the Civil War, or, you know, there's this fight between the two. Great Light beats the Profound Darkness, and then, or, you know, kind of what is called in the game is the Profound Darkness gets kind of shuffled off into this dimension and imprisoned there, and then the Algo system's created, and then the Great Light gives the different denizens of the planets that they create them. I think, well, they'd have to create them because they create the planet, but then they dub them as the protectors and all this sort of fun stuff. In the Japanese version, they're energy beings, and they have a civil war. So, you know, tons of time back in the past, they have a civil war, and it isn't a good versus evil, but the winners lock away the losers. You can't really destroy energy, so they lock them away. And that's when they start to manifest all this anger and resentment, and then become the Profound Darkness. And that's where, in what I've read of the details of the interview, I couldn't find a copy of the interview online, unfortunately. I just could only find little snippets of all these overall details of it and stuff. Is Ryoko kind of mentions that's where they would have explored. They would have explored, you know, the whole universe kind of idea, and these beings and such like that. You know, that would have been kind of cool. It would also been kind of difficult. How do you do energy beings? Like, how do you kind of work that out? I could see it kind of going a couple different ways, which I'll get to in a moment. But you know, that would have been at least that was their kind of starting ideas for if there were a 5. I know some people have mentioned having, you know, going back in time to kind of explore that, or having an interquel. And a lot of people, like, take the whole Phantasy Star 3 thing. A lot of people seem to loathe the idea that Phantasy Star 4 isn't the last point in time for the original series. It kind of makes me think of Star Trek. Now, man, I can understand why this, like, so you have the original series. I'm just going to kind of go with the main stuff here, but you have the original series. Next Generation takes place, what is it, like 100 some odd years after? I'm not exactly sure in the details, but it takes place later in time. So you get Next Gen, and then Deep Space Nine, which kind of happens concurrently, and then starts to go on its thing there, and then Voyager, which takes place later on. And after Voyager's like, as far as I can recall, Voyager's like the last thing that they talk about in Star Trek universe, because Enterprise and Discovery take place in the past. And I think that's to its detriment, and which kind of, I think, riles some people up, because I love Phantasy Star 4, and I think that point of contention with it taking place before Phantasy Star 3 bugs a lot of people, in the same way that it bugs a lot of Star Trek fans that they don't try to push beyond Voyager. And which, you know, I think that's kind of a failing for sci-fi. When you start to, you know, instead of trying to continually push the bounds in science fiction, but sort of regress into going back in time, it takes away from it a little bit. I mean, maybe there's certainly ways to get around it through there's something that people don't like, time loops, time travel, and that sort of thing, or, you know, exploring a different sort of concept or whatnot, because I don't know, for me sci-fi is kind of exploring the unknowns and, you know, how humans kind of go with that, with technology, magic, science magic, but technomancers. But I think if Phantasy Star V was to be an interquel, you know, talking maybe about that civil war that is referenced in Phantasy Star 3, or well, not a civil war, but, you know, that Great War, or maybe going way back in time to kind of the early parts of the Profound Darkness and Great Light fighting and stuff. I mean, that's certainly an idea, and people have suggested that as, you know, a way to kind of reestablish your footing into creating Phantasy Star games. I don't know if that would really work. If you went with so if you go with the idea that the Profound Darkness is this mass of energy beings that have kind of congealed together through their animosity and stuff, isn't that still possible that even though they kind of strike this killing blow to that there still would be, like, you could theoretically put it back together? You could, you know, put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah, it wouldn't be, it may kind of kill some people's interest in that idea, because then you're just kind of constantly fighting a never winning battle. You're just kind of staving it off. But I think it kind of it adds to the theme of the overarching kind of story for Phantasy Star, is that evil will always be present, and so you've got to, you know, with Phantasy Star 4, you've got to step up and take care of it. I mean, Phantasy Star 1 did that too. 3, yeah, they all kind of do that, but it kind of reinforces that idea. You know, another, like, so for me, I mean, you could go into that, though the Profound Darkness is gone, that because there's still evil in people, that, you know, maybe instead of it being the Profound Darkness, but, you know, maybe it's like something like Dark Force-ish that comes into fruition, or it's, you know, because it's a diaspora of negative energy, it can kind of come in, you know, it could come in through, you know, different sorts of people and stuff, so it's not necessarily concentrated into the, you know, Profound Darkness, but it you know, it manifests itself. Like, for example, in Phantasy Star 4, when you encounter Dark Force, which is the physical manifestation of the greatest hatred in the Profound Darkness, it takes the 3 different forms. And one's kind of like a mushy, kind of gelatinous kind of thing, and then it's a spider, and then it is human. And this kind of reflects the 3 different forms of the Profound Darkness when you're fighting it. It's this weird kind of mass, and then it's kind of more insectoid, and then it becomes human. You could explore that idea of more of the darkness within humans. I know that one's kind of, you know, that one gets played out a bit. Particularly because Phantasy Star usually tries to paint this, you know, very obvious good versus evil sort of aspect, but that could be something to explore more, is the evil within people, because, you know, it's different stages of it. Maybe this is where it leads into the whole energy being thing, because in the Japanese version, they have the Civil War, the losers are locked away, and then the victors create the algo system and stuff, and then they kind of just are gone. Maybe they do not appreciate that their brethren, whether they're bad or not, have been, you know, maybe they put the system in place to kind of punish them, but never really try to destroy them or something like that. So maybe they're not too thrilled that the people of Algo have have done this. Maybe Chaz is much more of a dunkerhead than they let on, and they do not like that. Or maybe you kind of explore the idea that similar to kind of how Phantasy Star 2 is with Mother Brain. Maybe they revisit and they come off as this very benevolent sort of race, species, what have you, but they are like, oh well, we don't need you anymore because they've been dispersed and they won't be around for a while. So we can kind of just, it's broken. You already kind of screwed it up a little bit, you know, with Palma and stuff. So let's fix this up here. Let's just kind of get rid of it, and then we'll, you know, that could be something to have done there. Yeah, I mean that'd be pretty cool actually. It's like, how the hell do you take on energy being? You need like a materializer or something. But that would be a way to do it. It would be, you know, maybe it's yeah, that's maybe they don't even present themselves. Maybe it's kind of similar to like Phantasy Star 2, where they kind of infiltrate, and then they're like, yeah, we should probably just get out of here or something, or, you know, let's lead Algo down the path of destruction. You know, that's what. But that, yeah, like there are, like, I love Phantasy Star 4. I really enjoyed the series, but, you know, I love 4's got some really phenomenal music and stuff, and I get that people are kind of content with how it kind of wrapped up, but that's because they never really give you this energy being civil war that isn't good versus evil. They did this, and this is where you get this point of contention of, well, it just because it's Japanese doesn't mean it's the definitive version, and the English version, it can be its own definitive version that can be like parallel universes, sort of thing like that. That's okay, but there is still plenty that could have been explored, and I think should be explored, because I know what the Phantasy Star 5. Please I'd like some more. But that's, yeah, you know, that would be the kind of the way to do it, is as Dieko expressed in that interview, exploring those energy beings and kind of the nature of the universe, or at least, you know, I mean, you could easily have had those same energy beings that are the remnants of them. Maybe who knows how they come about to give birth, or, you know, create more or something like that. But they could have easily had another civil war and then shoveled the other, you know, losers into a different dimension to start the cycle again. I mean, you could have done that, and it could be just like these energy beings. They don't take care of their problems. They just shove them on everybody else, and it's like, you gotta take care of them. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of gush about that. Blame this on Johnny Millennium for his that song, because boy, did that really just like light a fire in my belly, and really wanted, it just kind of took over. And I, you know, been, I guess also partially because I never really talked. I know I did a review with Sushi B for Phantasy Star 4, but, you know, I never really kind of got to go dive deeper into some of the stuff about it. So yeah, that would just be super awesome. Phantasy Star 5, because it can happen. I mean, I get, yeah, it's got the bow, but it's there's still more there. You can have other presents. But yeah, so that's it. If you've got any ideas, or if you feel, no, just leave it at 4 or whatnot. If you've not played them, I'd say give them a shot. That, or, you know, at least watch somebody blaze through it on a speed run or something, just to kind of get an idea of it. Because Phantasy Star 2 in particular is really good. Like, yeah, there's some things about it that are kind of lesser than some of the other games, but it does something like its story is what kind of pushes it in a very different direction than the others, where they're kind of, the other games are a bit more optimistic. 2 is not. 2 is very dark, and also puts some other games to shame, which I'll refrain from mentioning. But yeah, if you don't want to feel like playing through them and stuff, I can understand. But yeah, give them a look on a speed run or something to get an idea of it, and whatnot. Maybe give Phantasy Star 4 a play, because that one's probably the easiest one to code. Like 3 is the easiest, but it's kind of slow. But 4 is a good one to kind of get into and everything like that. And it's still enjoyable without having understanding of some of the other ideas and stuff, which, you know, if you do like 4, you can get into some of the other ones, and then you could be just like me and be like, give us a Phantasy Star 5, please, don't give us yeah. So yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching. Please comment down below and all that sort of fun stuff, and yeah, have a good day.